Welcome. I am welcoming you on my podcast channel, Within the Life. And it was such an informal invitation, but I'm thankful to you that you have joined me for this podcast. Even we have not decided what to talk, where to go. So the whole discussion will be just walking through.
Yes.
So this is, and you know the theme that it has to be motivational and all those things. So he's a very senior person in Financial Express and a lot of experience in socio-economic issues. And I was mentioning about that book.
Yes. The Business of Humanity.
The Business of Humanity is the book he has written, which is very, very popular and very meaningful in these days. So, Chandra Mohan ji, आपका कुछ उस किताब पर प्रकाश डालते हुए some light on that book in a summary way, and then we go ahead where we want to go.
Yeah. I think a nice way of beginning, I'll come to the book definitely.
Yes, okay, yes.
Thank you for calling me for the podcast. And actually, we can begin with my journey also.
Yes, exactly.
A 4 decades journey
journey
in journalism, which continues to this day. But it's interesting that I never had a presentiment in my past that I would ever be a journalist.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So
I basically, it was a big surprise for my father that I was a very happy-go-lucky type of person, and he thought that at least if I do MA, I may be persuaded to write the IAS and IFS, and he sent me to JNU. So it was a very big surprise for him when I told him that I began to, after 1 year of JNU, that I said, I'm beginning to like economics.
Okay.
So
when was that in JNU?
I was in the second batch of CESP, Center for Economic Studies and Planning, between 74 to 76. In the old campus, I was in Kaveri Hostel and all. And we had some of the best teachers who were fresh from Oxford and Cambridge, who kicked alive a love of the subject.
That is a great job.
So it was a big surprise for my father to hear it from me that I'm beginning to like a particular subject on which I am doing my MA in. So he said, go along, see how far it goes. And then I went to a research institution and came under some influence. I did a PhD, a very hard-won PhD. I'm very proud.
Sir, may I ask the topic?
I did a work at that time using census data to study a very rare problem. What is the size of the unorganized sector in India using census data? So it was a fairly pioneering work at that time.
I think it is still a pioneering work.
So using available published information to rigorously establish the size and characteristics and the changing nature of the unorganized sector in urban India.
My God, that is
that was my thesis.
It was published?
Not as a book, but generally I have published papers and all. And I was very desirous that I join academics, because after a hard-won PhD, you would like to go to a central university and do absolutely. Teaching and all that stuff. So University of Hyderabad, they were very keen to have me, but they needed the permission of the Vice Chancellor to create the appropriate slot to call me. I was waiting at home for the postman every day, for that letter to come.
Kab chitti aayi.
So in some way, to cut this thing, I got frustrated and I went to Chennai to meet my supervisor who had also transferred there to an institute called Madras Institute of Development Studies. He was a very famous agrarian economist, Dr. Vaidyanathan. I was his first student. I said, give me something to do. I can't sit at home waiting for a thing. After such a hard-won PhD, I'm waiting for the postman every morning.
Yes.
So he says, use my name, go write to Planning Commission, do this, that. I said, no, I need something now, here and now. I can't sit at home
Give me
anymore.
work.
Give me something. I'll be your secretary if need be. So that time, one mutual friend, he said, what are you doing this evening? Cancel your bus ticket to go home. I want you to meet a person who knows you also. And next morning, he took me to meet N. Ram of the Hindu.
N. Ram.
And he says, I need a person like you. I'm starting a magazine called Frontline.
Okay.
And I need a person like you. But I have no right to take you away. I know your mind and heart is it for an academic job. You have come here to meet your supervisor. Just give me a gentleman's word for 6 months. But join us. I need a person like you. So that's how.
So he knew you.
He knew me.
Yes, no,
This thing, but not that much. But the person who took me to him I was a little closer to him than now. So that's how the day Mrs. Gandhi was assassinated, I got my employment letter. My first job began. My father was very curious that, "Arey, kahan se journalism, after a PhD and, all that type of stuff." But then, that's how my life began. And he realized this was my mission in life.
Okay.
So, one lesson I can say in this whole thing is, it is not everything in one's journey in life, not everything works according to a certain plan.
No.
What you want to do, what you like to do, what you wish to do. Sometimes things don't work. I mean, to use a very common thing, Samay and Bhagya. Not all of us can fulfill our dreams.
Oh.
But sometimes pathways are opened. And my father was alive and he saw I was blossoming in journalism. He said, "This is what you were made for." Because the moment I joined, the letter from the Hyderabad University came, said, "Catch the next train, come." My father said, "Tell them to wait for 6 months."
Yes.
Because that's the word you've given. And after 6 months, I wrote to Professor Radhakrishna, "I'm happy where I am. My life has begun as a journalist, and an economic and business journalist, a specialized writer." So, thank you so much.
So you started from Frontline.
I started from Frontline, then I went to the Hindu,
Okay.
and basically began. I started, in some sense, working for all the leading platforms of the country. I went to Princeton after 5 years in the Hindu. Then I came to Delhi. I was with Economic Times, Business India, and all that. One thing that is, why is it important, this journey of you come with a certain background and a certain training. You want to understand the world. That is your mission. You must convey that to your reader. What are the problems? How do we discuss these problems? And give them some information to think about, to discuss these issues meaningfully. Making a difference is a very big motivation in journalism, because you're in public affairs. The reader wants to know. He may be curious about a lot of things. You must create the pathway for him to get a greater understanding of that. And this is where you have to be informative. You have to give him reference points to understand issues. It is not always that you can write on variety of issues. It is not necessary. You can slowly increase your repertoire. What the type of issues that I began in my early days in journalism are not necessarily the same.
Which are relevant today.
What I'm today. Today I have a broad spectrum of range of issues on which to write. People are curious about what's happening in Gaza. You should have that ability to tell the reader what is the real truth about Gaza, what is happening in Gaza, and what is Israel going to have peace of what it desires by just bombing it to a dystopian wasteland. That sort of stuff.
So, sir, do you think that present the journalism, there is no journalism as such, it is anchorism?
See, the thing is, the real journalism, like in the army, the real army is the infantry. The real journalism is print journalism.
Yes.
And print has a long, hoary history of providing in-depth knowledge. It is a very powerful medium because you're saying it in black and white.
Yes.
To the reader, and it's there in front of him. Unlike the audiovisual medium and social media, and which has come most recently, audiovisual medium is you are just reduced to a few sound bites.
Yes.
So if you're called to a television studio and saying, Dr. Chandra Mohan, what is your view on the Gaza war? You have to just give one line. Whereas in print, you have to say why you think the way you do.
You have to give a logic.
Yes.
And why you are thinking.
Precisely. And allowing the reader also to make up his own mind, because you have given him the reference points to discuss this issue. So in some sense, it is immensely satisfying to stick to this mission, to inform the reader, empower the reader with insights into contemporary issues that affect their lives. So this is in some way the noble mission of journalism. I am not saying all journalists necessarily share the same value systems. People come into journalism for various reasons. Like I also stumbled into journalism. I am not making any virtue out of it. But there are some people who want to use journalism for instrumental purposes.
Yes.
To advance in this thing. I want to become a secretary to the government. I want to be a media advisor. I want to be this. I want to be that. You know, in some sense, if you want to use that for some other purpose, it's quite possible that your writing necessarily will suffer because of this instrumentalist objectives or pursuing some other objective rather than sticking to the reader and empowering the reader by providing him the facts and the analysis of the ground situation. So in some sense, basically that's the sort of...
Can you tell about any experience when in the print media, when you, in your initial days, did you really go and report from the field also?
Yes.
That is the most important.
In fact, I can tell you, when I joined Frontline, it's like a first love for me. It was my first job and things like that. So, and I didn't know that I was a journalist till I joined Frontline. They used to send me to the coal mines of the country. They used to send me to the steel factories of the country. So I started writing on coal, steel, those type of issues.
Yes,
and things. So in the course of which I have covered all the steel plants several times over, and Jamshedpur is my favorite steel plant. You're going there, you're seeing the blast furnaces work. You can ask those people if you have any doubts.
Yes.
What is the difference between iron and steel? What is the way it's all done and things like that. So in some sense, I think one of the best writing I did, I mean till now it's unfair to say without any prejudice to my subsequent exertions, but one of the pieces I did for Coal India, for coal, included going down 3 kilometers into the deepest coal mine in the country, in Demoman, Eastern coal fields.
What was the name?
Demoman coal fields, Demoman mine.
You went with the...
I walked down. Yeah, it was going, the deepest underground mine, it was 3 kilometers.
There was no lift?
No lift. You had to walk down slowly,
Okay.
incline down.
Oh.
So, underground coal mine. So, that included that. Talking to the coal miners, talking to the bureaucrats. I even went to the open cast mines and basically even the committees. And what is the technology for deep underground mining? And they took me to Dhanbad and they said, would you like to meet a mafia don who's prevailing over all that? I said, I'll meet everybody. I'll meet everybody. He was selling all the sand and all that stuff, Suryadev Singh. Suryadev Singh. So basically, I covered all the bases in that story. Technology, first-hand experience of seeing the life of a coal miner, going down to the coal face. What is the long wall mining technology that is there, which is bedeviling this type of stuff. Then there was one bureaucrat called K.R.S. Chari who had written a report on coal, on mining and coal and things like that. And he was staying in Anandlok. K.R.S. Chari, I think he was staying there. And he was kind enough, because I was from the Hindu. He gave me the copy of the report. He says, I know you will not misrepresent that. So I had everything. I was breaking. I was having a front a first-hand experience of what is coal mining all about. And I could convey to the reader what sort of problems coal miners have, pneumoconiosis because of the dust and things like that. When they are in the coal mines, they always have problems of respiratory things. I met M.K. Pandey, who was the C2 president, who was also very active in the coal belt, about the problems of the workers, the way the management was dealing with this problem. Somehow, all the boxes were ticked in that story.
Okay.
And with some of the greatest photography, Hindu sent their best photographer accompany me.
Okay.
So the photographs of the coal mine and workers coming out of the shift and things like that.
So you started with investigating?
Not necessarily investigative, but in-depth writing.
Okay.
Which is enough, journalistic enough for even an interested lay person to understand. So, in some sense, my early writing for Frontline and in the Hindu was visits to Jamshedpur, Bokaro, Bhilai, Rourkela, Durgapur, and talking about coal and the modernization programs. I had very deep conversations with V. Krishnamurthy, who was the legendary chairman of SAIL. I had access to all the resources of SAIL, free hand to do what I wanted. So in some way, excuse me, I can say you need that intimate association with the material you're writing about. You cannot get this knowledge from clips from a newspaper and you're writing.
So a lot of research also.
Yes.
Lot of research.
So in some sense, what gave me tremendous satisfaction was the platforms I worked for harnessed my research capability to go in deep into issues and explain them with lucid, elegant prose, without any jargon, that this is the problem.
That hits the heart.
That hits the heart.
Yes. So Suryadev Singh, what did he do?
मैं इसको कत्ल किया, मैं उसको कत्ल किया. Like he very colorful.
He told
openly, because this, you have to enter Dhanbad, you have to pay me 50 rupees at the bridge. And all the sand and all, basically I sell. Ye mera hai. So in some sense, he terrorized the steel belt. There was another guy called some Ajit Roy or something like that. He was also with the tribals who was trying to counterbalance Suryadev Singh. But the Mafia Don phenomenon, the beating heart of the Mafia Don in Dhanbad was coal. They had the...
So you were not nervous when you did?
No.
Okay.
When you talk to the trade union leader, you talk to all these people, tribal leaders, Mafia Dons, coal miners, you're covering all bases. So, your ability to be insightful is because you have kept an open mind to take into account contrasting perspectives, and you can weave it together in a tapestry of a compelling narrative.
You are writing a poetry or a prose?
Basically, this is what I can say honestly, looking back on 4 decades of my writing. This coal piece and steel piece, how the steel was tempered and things like that, were exactly how I cut my journalist teeth. This is the way to do journalism. You have to be in depth.
So when did you start this writing on the social issues? It is coal and all those things.
So slowly, you build up a repertoire. In fact, before coal and steel, I used to write on the dollar. My first byline piece was on the mighty dollar.
Okay.
On financial crisis, global financial crisis. There was a Black Monday around that period to explain to the reader that the capitalist system is unstable and why is it happening and things like that. So, in fact, I can say that today in the Business Standard, there is an anchor on Ambattur Industrial Estate, which is completely waterlogged. In my time, I walked all over the industrial estate to talk about the small and medium industry, how vulnerable they are to the original equipment manufacturers and type of stuff, talking to the laborers, talking to the union people, talking to the bankers, talking to the small and medium industrialists who couldn't even write a balance sheet, type of people. And they're all dependent heavily on TVS and the original equipment manufacturer. They're hanging by a thread. The sickness is endemic in the small and medium industry belt and things like that. So in fact, like my coal story, this was also a story which came in the main paper on Ambattur Industrial Estate, one full page on this type of thing. So in some way, my early days with journalism gave me the foundation to sustain this craft for the next 4 decades, writing on in-depth, research-intensive pieces on issues which affect you and me.
But sir, this research or whatever you were doing, was it a motive behind this, or it was maybe some aim that you want to prove this like this, or it used to come automatically?
It came automatically because, in a sense, you have a curious mind.
Means agenda. There was some agenda?
No, it is a curious mind.
Okay.
And you want to understand the facts on the ground. You want to know the truth. The motivation for my writing was not necessarily ideological.
Yes.
If there is any ideology, it was just a compassion for the poor, the underprivileged, and things like that. It's a broadly speaking, a more humanitarian. Yes.
That was the only.
Nothing more than that. A concern for.
That is very, very important.
Yes.
Because those days when you started, it was ideology also was very important.
Very important. For those days, leftist was the main, was in the ascendant. But any of my writings was colored by a view to further a particular agenda. The thing is, when I left Frontline, and the editor-in-chief, who was Ram's uncle, called G. Kasturi, the legendary editor, he took me under his wings and made me write edit page articles and things like that. Curiously, he did not give me a byline.
Oh.
And Ram even interceded, saying, he's a doctor in economics. And in Frontline, he was getting a byline for everything he wrote. And Hindu, you are not giving him this thing. So he says, just leave him. Just forget the matter. I'll decide on this matter on my own terms. He made me wait for 1.5 years. And then on a particular piece which I wrote on the yen, shock of the high yen, Endaka shock. I thought he had forgotten to scratch my name out. And it appeared in my byline. And I went to him and said, sir, by any chance did you forget to scratch? He says, I never do such a thing. I never forget. I gave it to you because you have earned it.
Yes.
Now defend it all your life.
It was not because of Ram, it is because of me now. I'm realizing that.
Yes. And he says, you have earned it. Now defend the byline all your life. That's all you have. When you sign your name on a piece, you mean what you say what you mean. That is the most precious thing, your byline. That's the integrity of your thing, the imprimatur, that your name. You're lending your name to something. So defend it. So in some way, these are nice foundations. Being a curious mind, no agenda, basically master the facts and tell a story on that. In some way, this search for facts, I think, transcends ideology.
Yes. That is it.
So you must be in a position to even change your mind if the facts suggest otherwise. If you are not clear, tell the reader, this is very provisional. This is all I know.
This is all I know.
Never, in your compact with the reader, always keep him in the picture. In some sense.
It can be like what E.H. Carr told in his book.
What is history?
What is history?
Yeah.
You can add a viewpoint.
You can add a viewpoint.
But it's not my ideology.
Yeah. And that viewpoint is predicated on you standing on reasonably firm, stylized facts. Once you've got them and you share it with the reader, this is what we know. There's much we don't know.
Yes.
So, this is what we can tentatively say and say it. Say it. Never let the reader take him for granted and you can say something, hide behind jargon, all sorts of stuff. You have he can smell you out. And in fact, even to this day, when an aspiring journalist or whatever, even in Financial Express, when a young fellow interacts with me or whatever, I just say, just keep one thing in mind. The big difference between economic and business journalism and political journalism is, in political journalism, the reader is often as confused as the writer. Narendra Modi, what's in his mind? Now, how do you know what's in his mind? How do you get at that? Unless you do a CAT scan or something like that. How do you know? The nature of a political fact is very different.
Yes.
So it has a high reader appeal. What's happening? Kya hoga? When is the system going to change? And things like that. But in economic and business journalism,
this cannot happen.
Just take it for granted. The reader often knows more than you. He could be a policy maker. He could be a very powerful bureaucrat who is administering that particular policy.
Yes.
He could be a CEO of a company. He could be a businessman. The people who are interested in economic and business
because they can
just keep this in mind.
He can be Supreme Court judge.
Precisely.
Anybody.
You are writing for somebody who knows more than you.
Yes.
Just keep that in mind. And it's a humbling thing. Play straight to the extent possible. And in some way, be respectful of facts and be free to change your opinion and keep the pact with the reader intact in some way. So this
is a good thing. You differentiated between political journalism.
Yes.
The reader knows much than you.
Precisely. In political, the reader is as often as confused as the writer. So which adds to the TRP quotient of the piece. There's a lot of masala in that. So gossip is in some way, you're retailing gossip in some way.
Yes.
The nature of a political fact is less robust than an economic and business fact.
Very nice. How do you assess this Gaza thing vis-a-vis Indian politics? Is there any relevance for us?
It is relevant for us because we have virtually abandoned the Palestinian cause. In some way, our reaction...
But we recognize...
No. When we reacted initially...
that was wrong.
We completely empathized with the Israeli type of this thing and described it as a terrorist act. And, the nation has a right to defend itself and things like that. Suddenly, after that, we changed the complete U-turn with the Ministry of External Affairs saying we remain committed to a two-state solution. Now, this talk about two-state solution, in some sense, sort of gave us a fig leaf that we have. We have, our ability, our desire to engage with Israel because Israel provides us many things. Security, even the ability for the surveillance state apparatus. They give you the Pegasus, they're giving you the latest drones and things like that. So in some way, we model ourselves quite a lot on the way Israel deals with its enemies. We are in some way also in a pose of emulating their strategy, and we are not necessarily succeeding. And
we are not succeeding.
We are not succeeding. We cannot be an Israel. Now the question is, so this fascination and chemistry with Israel has in some way blunted. Even the whole Arab street is aware that India is on the wall. They want to run with the hares and hunt with the hounds.
Yes.
So they'll come to us because there's all sorts of stuff. But point is, on balance, we have not unequivocally condemned the Israeli bombardment. You know, in some way, people don't realize in the Second World War, when they carpet bombed Dresden and Cologne and all that stuff, in 2 months, you have done similarly to what took more than a year in the Second World War to reduce half of German cities to the rubble. In 2 months, you have reduced much of Gaza to a rubble. What is the end game for Israel? What does it hope to see in Gaza if it continues its operation for 1 month more in its search for Hamas? What sort of Gaza is left? You have decimated, you have reduced it to rubble.
Yes.
A dystopian wasteland.
Yes.
What do you look for? Do you want to populate your Israelis there?
I think they have something like that.
Something like that. So this sort of
Greater Israel. Or
I have a feeling we have not necessarily ticked all the right boxes in our empathy for the Palestinian cause and the reason for declaring a humanitarian ceasefire at the earliest. Because enough is enough. Even the UN Secretary General has invoked Article 99 to tell the Security Council, now take a call. You have to. We are going to see nothing left of Gaza if you don't act right now. So in some way, we are not necessarily pushing that sort of agenda.
Yes, we are not.
We are in some way very comfortable, in some sense, trying to balance our equation.
But somewhere I feel that there is some Hindu-Muslim locha in their mind also here.
They think the way Israel is dealing with its enemies, which means their own people like Palestinians who are sharing a common homeland, perhaps these people think that that's how they must deal with the minorities here.
Yes.
That's the way. Strong. This is right. So in some way, Israel is a role model.
Yes, exactly.
Is a role model. This is the way. Take out your enemies anywhere. Deal with these people the way they should. There's a sort of implicit empathy with the way Israel is going about it. I have a feeling we have not necessarily covered ourselves in glory in this 2 month period.
Yes.
We've just backtracked a little by saying two-state solution. It's almost like a hopeless refrain. It means nothing. You cannot have a two-state solution with a regime which is determined to exterminate
They don't even say that there is a state.
Yeah.
Two-state. Where is the two?
Where is the two-state? What is going to remain after this demolition of Gaza with 2.3 million people? And you're telling them to move to the south and you're bombing all the south, So even the UN has said, there is no place for them to go. And what are you doing? So in fact, it's reached an emergency situation where for the first time, Antonio Guterres has invoked Article 99 to ask the Secretary. It's now or never. Nothing will remain.
To bring things on a lighter tone.
Yes.
I know that you are a musician also. You play piano or
I play the violin. Yeah.
Violin. So are you still pursuing?
Yes, very much. Basically, similar spirit of my pursuit of journalism for 4 decades. I view in some way my journey in journalism in some sense as an effort to make a difference. And I devote my best energies to that.
Violin.
It's called quality time. Like journalism, I also like to restructure my time. I call it quality time in terms of we must all do things that give us pleasure.
So is it a stress buster?
Not necessarily a stress buster. Quality time also includes reading deeply, interacting with good friends and having a good conversation in which there is a back and forthing, even if there are diverse points of view, a good conversation with a good friend.
So actually you don't have any stress because everything is deep,
So,
detailed and honest.
Yes. And in some way, like one source, when people say, how can you become happy in life? What is the secret of happiness? In a small way, this conversation has indicated a certain journey. What has given one a lot of satisfaction is that I have pursued quality time in the pursuit of truth in journalism to the best of my ability. I have revitalized my fund of knowledge by reading extensively to be abreast of contemporary trends in thought and this thing. So in some sense, my time, what gives me pleasure is also an aesthetic principle.
Yes.
And getting to the violin is also a source of great pleasure. You transcend the current reality. You're in a different world when you're in the world of music, when you're in the world of ideas. So, with good friends, you can say it is an aesthetic principle in a search of beauty.
Can I call you that you are following some basic principle of philosophy or aesthetic philosophy or something? Because something is driving you or it is coming out of your heart.
It's coming out of my heart because...
Is there a spiritual motivation?
Yes, you're in search of truth, search of beauty. Even my morning walks. The main motivation is that besides fitness, being close to nature, we walk in one of the most beautiful parks.
Fortunately.
So in that sense, even my playing music gives one great pleasure. You transcend and you can say it's a search for beauty, like truth. There is no other motivation. Happiness comes when you are doing things that give you pleasure.
Swanta Sukhaya.
Yes.
Which gives you pleasure.
Yes. That pleasure is not necessarily a dissolute pleasure of dissipation. So your mind is automatically at rest when I'm executing a piece, writing an editorial in 1.5 hours time or 2 hours time or writing a column. You forget the rest of the world. You're just concentrating on the job at hand and doing that.
So any message for people who want to do, who are journalism and they are qualifying from the mass communication institutes or anything which you can give message for them?
Basically, a choice in journalism, and as I mentioned in the course of my in the course of a conversation with you, that I stumbled into it by accident.
Yeah, that you told.
Yes.
But what about these mass media?
The choices, and in the course of which I have interacted with people in journalism and I have even interviewed people who want to aspire to join journalism. It is a very satisfying profession if you feel you have the gift of communication. I don't think you need degrees or whatever. If you have just the predisposition, either you have a nose for news or an ability to turn a good phrase, a gift. Journalism is communication, whether it's spoken or written. Spoken largely in the audiovisual mode, but written as well. Not all people can speak well and write well at the same time. It's a unique gift to do both at the same time. That was this thing. So, it is highly recommended if you feel you have the gift for communication. That is the foundation on which you join the field and begin to blossom as your gifts.
So you consider it as a gift. If that gift is not with you, it cannot be trained.
It's very difficult to train.
Okay.
Because it is possible, but it is difficult. It's difficult to really do that. There is a certain predisposition. Even for music, everybody is interested in listening to good music. But the ability to play an instrument and apply a certain discipline to mastering it, to create that type of stuff, a certain predisposition is needed. Yes. It's not that anybody can pick up and, it's technically possible, but...
Technically these days that karakoi or
yes.
Anybody can sing like a...
But the thing is, to be a singer, if you don't have that gift, it is very difficult to pursue it as a craft.
Okay.
Once you have it, you can be honed by a good guru and things like that, Music, mathematics, research, you need a guru. And if you come under a good guru's influence, your talents can be honed and directed towards a certain...
But you had no guru?
Contrary to the impression I give, I would not. I wouldn't have been able to do a PhD in economics without a guru.
Okay.
I was the first student of Dr. Vaidyanathan, who was one of the most eminent agricultural economists in the country. I was his first student.
Okay.
You cannot do research without a guru. You cannot do anything in music without a guru. My guru in my violin in the Delhi School of Music is the best violinist in the Delhi School of Music.
Okay. That you did not tell about.
So, without a guru, it's difficult. When I go to the Delhi School of Music, he is the one who presides over.
He is still
He's a member of the staff. The faculty of the Delhi School of Music.
He's alive.
He's alive.
Okay.
He's alive. You cannot do in music, research, and all this type of thing. You need a guru. You need a person who can train, who can direct your energies towards, in a structured way, to this type of stuff. So, in some way, it is like people have liberal parents, tyrannical parents. Gurus come in all sizes and shapes. So it is a bhagya to have a good guru who can guide you to either refine your ideas and put it in a structured way, which is called research, can direct your talent, if you have a predisposition for music, to hone it in a particular way, a particular gharana, a particular style of play, and make you seek perfection in that. These are some, this thing here.
So, Dr. Chandra Mohan, it was very, very nice to have you here and very inspiring. I hope this podcast is popularized to the young people who are coming up, and it is a motivation for them.
Yeah.
And if they want to meet you or seek your blessings, is it possible? Just
definitely, and you are the interface. They'll contact you because you are the of this podcast. And
thank you so much.
But it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
No, it's not. This type of this is a very minuscule opportunity. You can get these opportunities anywhere, but here we are fortunate. Thank you so much for coming.
Sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.